Hey guys, and welcome back to another Game of Thrones Season 8 video, but today we're going to do something a little bit different. We all have these theories and speculation and predictions on what's going to happen in Season 8, and we're damn near running out of ideas here. Give us the damn show already. So I'm going to do something a little bit different today and tell you what I think's not going to happen in Game of Thrones Season 8. So I guess it's still technically predictions since I'm predicting what's not going to happen, but these are 5 of the most common predictions here for Game of Thrones Season 8. So let's get into it. Game of Thrones Season 8, things that are not going to happen. And by the way, these are in no particular order, just 5 things off the top of my head. Alright, so let's get to it. Number 1, Varys will not betray Daenerys. It doesn't make any sense to me that Varys would betray Dany in any way after his entire storyline since Game of Thrones Season 1 has been about a Targaryen restoration. Now, of course, this is a little different in the books with Aegon, or perhaps Fagon, but Aegon has kind of been condensed into Jon and Dany both as far as characters go in the show, so it doesn't make any sense to me that Varys would out of the blue in Season 8, after he gets what he wants, essentially, to turn on Daenerys. Now, obviously, there was a monkey wrench thrown into his plans with the Army of the Dead, the supernatural, all that good stuff that he wasn't taking into account, like most people weren't. But I don't think it makes any sense for him to betray Dany. Now, he could tuck and run as far as trying to save his own life after getting the bad news from Melisandre, which we all assumed is going to be an earlier death than he expected. Now, of course, he knew he was going to die in Westeros anyway. At some point, everybody dies. Valar Morghulis. But I think we all took that as some mysterious death that he didn't expect coming a lot sooner than he thought, as opposed to dying of old age. But anyway, after undermining Robert and saving Dany's life and then recruiting Tyrion to the cause, I also think he wanted to recruit Ned Stark to the cause as well, which is why he tried to save his life and send him to the wall. It just doesn't make sense for out of the blue for him to turn on Dany for no reason. Now, a lot of people do think also that maybe after he finds out about Jon and the whole world finds out about Jon, about him being the rightful heir, that he may prefer Jon over Dany because he's a little more mentally stable, supposedly. But I don't think that's the case either, because I think Jon and Dany, regardless of what happens to them, they will now be a package deal. So if you get Jon, you get Dany. If you get Dany, you get Jon. So I don't think it makes any sense again for Varys to cut and run after his entire storyline. Everything he's worked for in every backstabbing situation since Game of Thrones Season 1 was all about getting Viserys and then, of course, Dany after his death over to Westeros to sit on the Iron Throne. And number 2, I think a lot of people think this may happen. Arya will not sail west of Westeros. It just doesn't make sense for the story. I don't think Arya will actually get on a boat after this whole thing's over, assuming she survives, and I do think she will, and hop on a boat and just start sailing somewhere to disappear and go see what's west of Westeros, which eventually is going to be just Essos again anyway. Now, of course, people got this from Game of Thrones Season 6 when Lady Crane helps out Arya to heal by giving her some nasty-ass soup after Arya got shanked on the bridge by the haircut.
Where will you go?
Essos is east, and Westeros is west. But what's west of Westeros?
The edge of the world, maybe.
I'd like to see that.
To me, this goes into the idea of the direwolf names and what they may represent as far as their owners. I do think that Arya perhaps may become a lady when she doesn't, of course, plan on becoming a lady, because love is something you can't plan for, and that may be a little wishful thinking too, but I think it is possible that her and Gendry may fall in love, and she does become the Lady of Winterfell at some point, as opposed to Sansa, because as Grey Area and I talked about in our collaboration videos, I think it is a good idea that since Lady died in the place of Nymeria, that Sansa may die in the place of Arya in the wars to come. So again, after Season 7, after she rejoins with Sansa, they have their little drama and essentially talk about the wolf pack. It doesn't make sense that all of a sudden she's going to become a lone wolf and go off on her own to find out what's west of Westeros. And number 3, and this is a very popular theory that's been going around for well over a year now, Bran is not the Night King. When you first hear this theory, it sounds kind of cool and you think, oh, that's interesting, that's a possibility, but until you start really thinking about it, it doesn't make any sense for Bran to warg into the guy actually tied to the damn tree. Now, I do get the idea that Bran tries to stop the Night King from being created in the first place, which totally makes sense as an option to try to stop the Night King in his current form. But think about this. If Bran is the Night King and the prevailing theory goes that he's somehow stuck in this Night King because he tried to warg the guy, the Proto-Stark, that got tied to a tree and turned to the Night King in the first place, why would you warg the guy already tied to a tree? Now, perhaps he possibly did that before the guy got tied to a tree, before he got captured by the children of the forest and somehow got stuck. That is, I guess, a possibility, but think about it this way. What is Bran's role in Season 8 if he is the Night King and he's not even in control of him? So that means in some episode in Season 8, we would have to see Bran go into warg mode at some point, get stuck, and basically just lay there in warg mode and die anyway. And if he's not in control of the Night King, if he's not actually the Night King himself in there in some altered form where he's the one trying to destroy everybody, it doesn't make sense anyway. It just basically takes Bran and sticks his mind in somebody else's mind where he has no control, so there's no point in him even being a character in the show in the first place. And speaking of the Night King, we have number 4 on our list, which is Jon will not replace the Night King. To me, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever for somebody to have to replace the Night King. This is the original Night King that was created by the Children of the Forest, specifically Leaf, in their little ceremony near the mountain shaped like an arrowhead. I don't believe the Night King is some kind of title passed down. And remember, in the books, there is no Night King. There is a legend of a Night's King, which was the 13th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. And I think they just borrowed that name for the show to label the de facto leader of the White Walkers. But remember, in the books, there is no de facto leader as of yet. Maybe we find that out in Winds of Winter if we ever get that book in the first place. But it just doesn't make sense for Jon to have to become the new Night King in order to save the world, because if he becomes a White Walker in some way, shape, or form, which we don't even know if adults can become White Walkers, of course we've only seen Craster's children turned, then Jon would not be in control anyway, and it would not help the situation whatsoever, unless you figure because he has special magical Targaryen/Stark blood in his veins that he can control that somehow. It doesn't make any sense for him to actually become a White Walker. If he could somehow control the White Walkers to lead them away back up north beyond the wall and have the wall rebuilt or whatever to keep them out of Westeros, he could likely already do that anyway without becoming a White Walker himself. So it kind of fits with what I said about Bran being the Night King. It doesn't really make any sense if Jon himself would not be in control of the Night King. And number 5 on our list, the Crypts of Winterfell will not have a major role in Game of Thrones Season 8. I know a lot of people, including myself at times, think there's something really important about the Crypts of Winterfell. I know we get a lot of questions on live streams about, will the Night King raise the Kings of Winter from the Crypts of Winterfell to fight in the Army of the Dead? Or perhaps a lot of people think as well that the Kings of Winter, the people buried in the Crypts of Winterfell, will perhaps rise up itself in some magical way to actually fight the Night King army, so dead versus dead. But here's the thing I've said many times as far as the response to the Crypts of Winterfell. There is nothing left in the Crypts of Winterfell that could be raised from the dead in the first place. Now, yes, it's possible for anybody recently buried in the Crypts of Winterfell like Ned or Rickon, perhaps even Lyanna and people like that, could be reanimated because there are still bones in those crypts. But as the books describe, the iron swords that lay across their laps have already rusted away themselves. So if iron has already rusted away, there's definitely no bones left. And if there are bones left, they're certainly not together. So you would have to have some kind of magical reanimation thing where skeletons can put themselves back together, pick up a rusted iron sword, and go fight. So I don't believe that the crypts are a major role in the Season 8. I do think they are more of a book thing related to Jon's parentage, and I believe that's what's calling to him in the Crypts of Winterfell as far as his dreams go. He specifically states that it's not the Kings of Winter that he's afraid of. So I think it has something more to do with his parentage, about Lyanna being his mother, because think about it, we've only seen the crypts a couple times. One was about Lyanna in the very first season, when it gave us the hint in the first place that R+L does in fact equal J. And the other times it was Bran and Rickon and those guys hiding out in Winterfell until they could escape Winterfell to head north of the Wall. And of course in Season 7, it was Jon, Arya, Sansa, etc. going to see their father Ned. And that's basically all we got as far as the Crypts of Winterfell. So I don't think they'll play some magical role, but I do think they'll play a role in the idea of Jon learning about his heritage, where from this point on, when he finds out he's Aegon Targaryen, he will now look at Lyanna's statue a lot differently. So anyway, that's all I have for now as far as things that will not happen in Game of Thrones Season 8. These are just my opinions, so let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think some of these things will happen in Game of Thrones Season 8? And if so, why do you think they're going to happen? And as usual, thank you for all the support, especially to you guys on Patreon. And a huge shout out to my executive Patreon SmokeScreen producers, D. Brown, Aaron Hadbig, Lala Gig, Hoonjob, Mike Colton, Doc Holliday, Anastasia, Carol Brown, Goska, Lisa Phillips, Alfred Boycemeyer, Dit Smith, and John Carey. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate the support. And to everyone on Patreon and YouTube as well. And if you dig what I do here, please comment, like, and share these videos. I really appreciate it. And be sure to subscribe to get everything and click that notification bell so you're notified when I drop a new video. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.